Good afternoon. Welcome to today's presentation on applying advanced reporting functions in Webi version 4.3 SP2. My name is Marcy Lentz, and on behalf of ProTech Training, I will serve as your host today. Before I introduce you to our guest, just a few items to go over. This presentation will last approximately 45 minutes with additional time at the end for Q&A. During the webinar, feel free to enter your questions in the chat area of Zoom and go ahead and send that to myself, and I will monitor those questions and get those over to Michael. Today's presentation is being recorded, and in the coming days, you'll receive an email with the recording link. Now, a little bit about our guest. Michael Ward has over 25 years providing technical high-level consulting and training throughout North America. He has been heavily involved with business intelligence since 1990 and has worked with a number of different business intelligence products. He has over 25 years of business objects experience, providing both consulting and training services. He is recognized as one of the top business objects instructors in the country by a number of national training companies located in North America. He is also involved in the development of business objects, training for his company and for many of his clients. He also provides high-level consulting services. Without further ado, I give you Michael Ward.
Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see everybody back out there. It's nice we got our next round of, well, I could call them lunch and learns or webinars or whatever, for business objects. Obviously, we're now moving towards 4.3 side. I've been doing a mix of both. If some of your organizations out there would like to see 4.2 versus this one, I can also do this as a 4.2 presentation. But with more and more of you migrating over to the 4.3 world, and many of it's just right now in a sandbox type environment, is what you're seeing there. This will be good information for you. My version that I'm running is 4.3 Service Pack 2, and it was patch number 300, which is where you want to be. There is an 4.3 SP3 release out, beta only. I'm one of several people that has an opportunity to work with it, and I have been for a little while, shaking it out, looking at some of the improvements, and they fix some of the things and so on, which I could, if I jumped over, you wouldn't even notice the difference for it. So this is a fun presentation. It's designed to be more of a lunch and learn. There's no handout, but handouts of the content that I cover here and in other webinars are all part of our awesome training bundle, which includes our manuals, which many of you have from training, but also the best practice guides, which many of you saw in 4.2. I've converted all of those over for 4.3, or most of them, showing all the different presentations you might have been through along the way to make it valuable for you. So what we'll start in right now, we'll go in there live. Let me get out of my mode that I'm in here. Oh, let me get out of here. Okay, close this screen out. There we go. And let me jump over to my business objects environment. I'll kick right in here. I'm running an image, 4.3 SP2 image, and I'm going to get into Webi here right now. Get into the system. Here it is. Oh, bring it up, guys. There we go. Let me click in here. So it should be a very educational process. Obviously, you really want it in the long run. You'd want to have materials and so on. What we've done is we've laid it out for the 4.3 training materials that we have in our 3-day format to parallel 4.2, so that if you were pulling your books out and looking at new topics, it's comparable, it's compatible. It makes it easier for you to look for things because you want to be able to do that. That's going to be a big thing as well. So here's my login, a little different login screen, but we'll get our login in here. And we'll push it up. And from probably many of you, this may be your first look at the BI Launchpad in its new format. It's not as bad as you think. When you start to work with it a little bit, it starts clicking in a little bit, and you see. And I try to make it easy for you by kind of reviewing what's important and what's not. There's a lot that's going on. Across the top are your different categories. What we're used to seeing in the old version, a different layout. You can use your scroll on your mouse to do this, which makes it very nice. Down on the bottom half is your applications, which we used to see on the right side. Up and down in the 4.2 version. So I'm going to log into Webi and share a story. I've got some of you out there that I know are attending from one of my clients out east, and share this story because it's happened at more than one company. You came in, you left on a Friday afternoon, logged out of Webi 4.2, expecting when you come in on Monday to be in the same world, and you come in Monday morning and you enter a whole new world. And I've had people actually snapshot their new environment, send it over to me and say, what is this? Where did this come from? What am I looking at? It's like, oh, you moved. Well, I guess they forgot to tell us. So those kind of things can happen. Hopefully not, but and we built a one-day navigating through course just to make it, for those of you that are already experienced, you can have that as an option as well. So here's your select data source. It's got a new look. It's not just one single column, but secondary options. These are going to change even further with the 4.3 SP3 release. Very minor, but there'll be some changes. There's our universe Webi document. We've had that since the 4.2. I can bring in Webi as a data provider source, the report itself, Excel, text, we're used to, freehand SQL as well, or an empty document as well. We're going to pick universe. And the select universe window comes up. It's generally kind of the same thing. We had to migrate out of Access because the 32-bit stuff wasn't supported anymore. So we went to SQL Server databases for our 3 universes. Still the same stuff that everybody's used to seeing when you're out there as well. So now we're going to take a look, and here's the query panel. Since I'm here primarily to talk about the functions, I still want to give you a little bit of background about what the screens look like and help navigate you through. It's similar but different. Here's the query panel. That's generally laid out the same as what you had in earlier versions. The left side are your universe, folders, and objects. The results objects, query filters, and up here, if I wanted, I could open up the third button up here for displaying, and I could add that into the mix as well. Those are just options that I have. So let's keep it simple for right now. What if I just brought over year and quarter? So far, it all looks the same. State that we're used to seeing. Just like before, I can click on the folder and get all the objects from the folder called measures. And here's all of the objects I selected on the right-hand side. We could be query filters. We won't cover that today, but query filters are basically laid out the same. In 4.3 SP3, they added even a hint feature now where you can expand your prompt message as well. Pretty cool stuff for that. So, but we'll stay away from that now. We want to make sure we have time to get through the functions that you're here to learn about. There's a lot of different reporting functions that we want to be able to find and work with. So I got my year, quarter, state, my 4 measures. Now, notice as I move up over my objects, it's got a little X for Xing out purposes, a little enhancement in 4.3 that I like. I'm going to use that to get rid of that one only. So I've got 3 dimensions, 3 measures. The icons for dimensions, details, and measures, or attributes as you know them, has changed. The filter has slightly as well. So you got to get used to a new icon. There it is. That's the one for dimensions. There's the one for measures. Once again, as they do major upgrades, they always change the icons around. So we're looking at it a little different than before. You know how they always do upgrades with business objects? They shift things around. Page numbers always go from top to bottom, and then your run option for running the query. The last version was up here. Now it's back on the bottom. There you go. So things are in a different place. It's just a matter of getting comfortable. Oh, it's which version am I in and where is it? So we're going to run that one. Okay, and that takes us out of the query panel window. That's the one area that's similar. And then from here on out in the report viewer window, you're in a new world, very different world. But don't be afraid of it by attacking it kind of an orderly fashion and starting out basic and so on. It works out pretty nicely, and you find that things are organized in a different kind of way. It's like they went to a whole horizontal orientation from having a mixture of vertical and horizontal in different places. We're used to seeing all of our related objects and different functions here. They're no longer scattered over here. This is my report viewer window. Let's take it the right side. If these 2 panels don't come up, it's because there's 2 options up here that you have turned off. This is to show the main panel. I turn that off. This should show the properties for it. And now I'm looking at it without any of the underworkings, if you want to call it that. Always make sure these 2 are on. We have to do that. There's our design button. We're in design mode as it is. There's my report window. I don't like how it always puts things on the left edge, but that's how it is. In order to move the block, what you're going to do in 4.3 SP2, to click on a block, you click once inside, and if you're coming from the outside, it'll block the whole thing. I can then move it over to the right here. I want to have it more available to me to the right side of the viewing window. Okay. If I want to get rid of the title, which you saw on top, I can click and delete it. Let me scroll this up here. I don't want this in the way. I want us to be able to see more clearly. A lot of right-click shortcuts are available to you. There's one of them. Some of them are similar, some are different. That's part of the getting used to. And in our typical training one day, you're going to get some firsthand experience in doing some of these things so that you leave it more comfortable. All right. So we'll wait for it to come up here. And I've got my right side all opened up here. Over on the extreme right side, this is called the main side panel. Don't shoot me. I'm only the messenger. Why the developers called it the main side panel? I've talked to my good buddy, Samuel Polachuk, and he said, well, that's just how they did it. But There's the main side panel. A lot of this functionality here you're used to seeing on the left side. It's now over here. And right now I'm looking at my objects that came in from the query. And this is basically what we're used to seeing on the left side. Here's your report structure map. And here's one for showing the reporting. Here's one for comments, and there's document properties and so on. We're not worried about those right now. We want to make sure we take a look at what's here. Okay, so we want to be able to work with the primary functions that we're used to from the analysis panel in 4.2. Well, there is no analysis pattern. If you look, there's no tabs up here, anything like that. All of that's disappeared. It's pretty much buried over here on the right side with a few options that are up here as well. Okay, you have to get used to this part of it here. We have two primary options up here. This one here is the show the report element data. Give me a data view of it. And this one is give me the format view of it for formatting purposes. And it takes me to a different button here and a different layout. And that would do all my formatting for the columns and the titles and all that kind of stuff there. So we don't be getting into that today. That can be for future, but nevertheless. So if you come in on the structure side here, on the left side here, let me click over to this side and get it to change. And then I select below that. Well, what you need to do is you constantly need to make sure that the block's highlighted, either individual column or the block, so that over in the, this is the main build panel, I have the ability to mess around with all of my objects. And here's all of the functions. It's almost like this is a mini analysis toolbar. Kind of is in a way. But we don't have 5 formal tabs, so it really doesn't officially do it that way. So what we want to do is we got to make sure we're on the data side, not the format, but the structure side. This option is called the feeding panel option. I always call it the feeder. I click on that. And by doing this path, coming on the main build panel, picking the feeder option here, I come down the line and there's all of my objects in the report. Okay. You have no ability to drag out anymore, but you can drag things in. If I wanted to delete a column over here, I have a new feature that allows me to go right into this little window and I can move them up and down and left and all over the place and watch the report change. Or if you're like me, an old timer, I like to do it directly on the columns. Maybe I want to move them up and over, or whatever the case may be. You can do your maintenance right here. I'm going to go over to the quarter and say, I don't want quarter in the report. I want it for later use, but not right now. I click the delete button on it. It says, bye-bye, see you later. Now my report changed instantly. Okay. We do have an undo button in the left-hand corner. We have our save as well and other functions. Let's do an undo there. Okay. Okay. To put it back in. In the alternative way, you do have some nice right-click options. So if I right-click, it's a little different menu than we had with 4.2, but a lot of similarities. It's just getting used to that one. I'm going to delete there. So I showed you a different way to do it. Okay. And if I'm over on the structural side versus the format side here in the build panel, and I've got something highlighted in here, even if it's one column or the whole block, I now have my ability to display the feeding panel and all the corresponding objects. So there's my report, but I wanted to work with it without the column. Now, if I want to put quarter back in, what did I tell you? You said you can drag in, but you cannot drag out. Well, I'm just going to do my adding and deleting here. I can actually squeeze them in between if I wanted to, and so on. And those are kind of sidelight things I just wanted to briefly show you as well. So you got to get used to the fact you have your main side panel, your general structure and your mappings and so on. And you have your specific area for not only the data, but the format of the data as well, governed by these two primary buttons up here, and they're opened up right up here. Right. So what we would like to do to this report is I want to do a break. The number one function we use is the break command. It allows us to sort and group things. Cool. Very powerful. If you remember in 4.2, breaks come up as a separate category on the analysis toolbar. Okay. And there's the ability to change some of the settings for it as well, which we'll show you here as well. So what I want to do is I want to add a break to this report. The best thing you can do is highlight the particular column that you want to apply it to. It makes it a little time saver. And over on the right side, as long as I'm on the data element or data structure side, over here is the option for the break. You got to get used to that. Breaking, ranking, sorting, local filtering. Where's grouping? Well, it's in another place. Where's custom ordering in another place? We'll get to those later on. Let's get the basics down so you know how to do simple breaks. I've highlighted the one column. Over here, I click on the break option. It changes the window. And this is where you have to select that you want to add a break. This is how it works. I select the add a break and I want to do it just for year. If you want to do a concatenated one, you can click the two of them together and it'll do concatenated. We had that in 4.2, so that hasn't changed there, but we're just going to do year only. Okay. Now that I've made a change, the okay or cancel. This is very different. Sometimes you'll see okay or cancel, and sometimes there'll be another option for automatically updating can be set as well. So keep your eye out for those. where those come in there. So I'm going to do an okay on it. And there's my brake. Look at the report on the left. Look at the brake. I got one overflow, so I decided to stretch it out. Notice one other very important thing, automatic subtotals. Where did that come from? That's the 4.2 feature. If many of you have been working with the product a long time, you haven't had training for a while, you may be interested in my handout that I can mail out to you. It's a 4.2 summary of new features from SP, I think 3 all the way through 7. And they had a lot of new features that you might not have ever been aware of because they came out more recently. You didn't get update training and maybe your company didn't provide it. I make that's one option I will send out to you as a result of the webinar is that particular one. So you'll find out there's a lot of new features in SP3 through 6 that you never knew about, and they're here as well. All right. Well, we're seeing right here, automatic subtotals. Okay. No grand totals. You have to do the grand totals yourself, but there's just like you do in 4.2, automatic subtotals. Okay. I highlight the block over here. And if I were to choose and go over to this side of the operation, there's my layout header and footer. So I could put a footer in there if I wanted to. And by doing the footer option, what it does, it gives me the grand totals on the bottom. That's a carryover from 4.2. It works the same way, but for many of you, that might be a new feature. Notice I'm on the format side. Let's go back to the data structure side. Okay, we'll click on the feeder option so that I've got all my objects being displayed. So where in the world are my properties? How do I manage the settings for my properties for the brake? We always had manage brakes as a drop down, and it opened up a little window. Where is it here? Well, let's take advantage of the new look and feel. If I click over here on, well, I've actually got it all displayed right in here. If you look at how the value or the objects being displayed, it tells you here that there's a brake. If there was a sort, it would have designated that as well. If there was a filter, you'd have little indicators that are in there, but it tells us that I've got a brake here. So what I can do is I can go over to here. When you see 3 gray dots, see 3 gray dots, that always means left click. Make a note on that one. That's going to drive you nuts. It's very critical when you get into merging dimensions together in the advanced area. You can get confused very easily. So I click on the more options, okay, and I can move up and down. I can hide. I can apply operations. That's there, okay. Or I can go over inside here. Well, let's do this. Let me make sure I got my year highlighted here. So what we want to do here is we've got our brake sign assigned here for this one. Okay, let me get up here for this one. And what we want to do is we want to bring up the properties. Okay, this is called settings now from properties before. And look at the box that comes up. And again, as you start venturing out, you want to look for things that are familiar to you because that's a comfort factor. You can build on that with the new stuff. So I had to go up to the year up under the brake section up here. Brake header can be turned on or off. The brake footer, apply a sort, value-based brake. Now, be careful with this one. In 4.3 SP2, it throws an error if you try to use it, but they fixed it. Patch 300 took care of that one. I don't do a lot of value-based brakes. So I don't have that many new customers running in 4.3 yet, but in a sandbox environment, but this one does come up. And it's one that I'm aware of. I've already talked to developers and it got a fix for that one came out in patch 300, which was good. Here's your display first. We're used to all this stuff. This isn't anything new. Display all, first, merge, or repeat. We'll do a merge just to do something a little different. Start on a new page and so on. Look at how nice it is. It's very consistent with what we saw in 4.2 when you looked at the properties for your managed brakes. Okay, very similar. That's what we want. We want to be comfortable and not get overwhelmed by the overall moving around stuff. So we'll put the merge in there only. It's the only thing I chose to do. But I could have turned off the footers and all that kind of stuff if I wanted to as well. But we decided it made more sense to go this route. Mine runs, it comes back much quicker than this, by the way. I'm running in a VMware and an image. So with, a lot of memory, but it always runs a little slower. So in your case, it does run, it would normally run a bit faster than that, to say the least. I'm currently evaluating for SAP, the 4.3 SP3 release. So as I'm giving you some feedback along the way as well as part of that. So notice now it tells us I have 1 brake. If I added a second brake, it would give me a 2 and a 3 and a 4. If you wanted to do a ranking on those, you could do a ranking, but we'll skip that one for now. Sorting is the other one that goes with it. I want to display the data, but I want to sort it. The way I want to sort it is I want my years to be newest to oldest, not oldest to newest. Well, here's the new sort button. You click on the sort. Okay. Now you add a sort, just like we added a brake. Instead, we're going to add a sort. Okay. We're going to come in here. We're going to do a sort on year. It's going to default to ascending. It's a little bit different now how this works, but just to show you. And again, I switched over to the other 4.3 SP3 version that I'm running, it runs a little bit quicker. Okay, waiting for the sort to apply. Okay, so it's sort ascending now. It automatically defaults to that. This is where it gets a little tricky. Got to go over to the right side, and it says sort ascending. This is where you click on it, and the click on it flips it to a descending sort. Click brings it back to ascending and descending and so on. So it's going to go back the other way. That's a bit strange, but that's where you do it, just to make sure. And you'll see how my years will then fluctuate, flip-flop the other way. Wait for it to come up. Okay, that worked pretty good. So now I've got my descending sort defined there. I wanted to come in here. I have the ability to create a custom order. And one of two places. This is to put them in a different order. So if I wanted the years to be modified, I could come in here. It's going to say, what order do you want these in? You can move them up and down. Okay, value to add to the list. And once you click on one of these, the buttons over on the left side here will automatically kick in, and you can put in whatever order you wanted, just like before. That's one of two places you can do it, by the way. And this is the one most people get hung up on. It's also available over on the right side, but we'll get to that one a little bit later as well. So look at that. I've got a descending sort on year. I've got a break on it. Up here, it tells me you've got one sort, you've got one break. We've already looked at the break properties. That was pretty easy. Sort doesn't really have properties, but you saw what was going on with that one. And now we're making some good progress here. Got a nice block together. And we're basically, you can tell you're going to live primarily in this area. This is the build panel, the side panel. I put together a 2-page handout that I give out in all my classes. It's a graphic. And we show you this on one of the pages with all kinds of little comments all the way around it, pointing to the different sections of it as a reminder. And I created one for the main side panel over here to do a very similar thing. It's a very useful reference tool. Again, my goal is to make you more comfortable and more proficient. And that's part of what we want to do, again, by creating little documents like that as well. So far, we've done pretty well with this report. It's looking pretty good. We managed to navigate from the query panel into the report viewer window. And we're basically spending most of our time in the build panel area as opposed to the side panel. Now, let me stop for a minute and let's see if there's any questions. We could take at least a few at this point before I get into the other areas.
All right, so we did have one come in. It was, is there a configuration file to change the default report display after the query has run?
No, if I'm understanding your question, no, I'm not super clear on your question.
Okay. Could you put a page break to have data displayed on different pages?
Okay, that's a good question. Let's go back in here. We're on the structure side here. We got to highlight the block, because if I highlight the block and come on the structure side here and the feeder side, I can get to all these. If you remember right with break, I click on break up here has settings instead of properties, settings. And if you notice down on the bottom, start on a new page right there, and you can avoid page breaks. And this is laid out exactly the same as what it is in 4.2. So it's one of those, associating between the two is awesome. And the ability that this is laid out exactly the same. So what you're asking right there, start on a new page. Okay. And you can avoid page breaks in the block. So hopefully that was good. All kind of came in as a byproduct of it. So we laid it out very nicely. There's a structure mode over here as well and so on. But again, I want to gear ourselves primarily around what you see right here. So what if we wanted to rate, what if we wanted to do a ranking now? I'm not big on the ranking button. You know that already. There's a rank function in the function library. I recently developed a little example where I show you how to rank something. And the request that came in from users, and they wanted every even number to be conditional formatted background. So I took the rank function out of the library instead of this one here, and it was pretty cool, carrying it out a lot further. But let's take a look at this one. This is your typical simple ranking. Top 3, bottom 5, top 50%. Let me click on the ranking right here. And it's, as always, when you pick something, it always comes back with the add. For that one, add a rank. I want the top 3. I don't want a bottom. And I can remember, here's where you have to be careful. Similar to what you get with the ranking in 4.2. Based on is always the measure. I want to base this one on sales revenue. And I want to rank it by state. So give me my states ranked. Give me the top 3 states based on sales revenue. We're used to that. If you don't want to count, you want a percent, you have the percent option available as well. But for time's sake, we'll do the 1. Just again, so you can kind of get a feel for how to navigate around. We'll do an okay on that one. And just like in all earlier versions, when you apply different functions up here, The break ultimately is number one. So the break takes place first, then the ranking's done inside of it. It's always worked that way. That hasn't changed. So in each of these, I get the top three. They just, because of the way we roll our databases, the values didn't change enough, but it gave me the top three states within the year. You always have your breaks on your higher level and your rank at the lowest level. One of my many best practice pointers from my training classes as well. So we did top three. If I want to eliminate that, said, we'll get rid of the ranking. We're done with it. I don't like that anyways. Now it's gone. But there's your ranking, pure and simple. All right, so all the way across. Now filtering. What do we mean by filtering? We mean local filtering. You'll notice up here across the top, under Analyze, there's a filter button here, and that's what opens up the generic filter window here on the left, and that allows you to create input controls, a group of controls. I just had a question from a webinar I was doing 2 days ago, where they wanted to do a year, quarter, month, hierarchically word cascades. And this is where you would do it. Create year, create quarter, create month, group those 3 prompt statements using the group, and they automatically cascade down. So if you pick a particular year, you only get the quarters and months for that particular one. But that's where you can manage the overall filter bar. It's one of 2 places. We're going to do it over here. What if we just wanted to filter certain states? Okay, we'll highlight the state column here. There's our filter button. It says now the filter automatically, if you click here, it's already on that one by default. So what you need to do is drop the object in that you want to filter on. I want to filter on state. You drag it right in, drop it right in the window, and it says, okay, what states do you want? Okay, notice the order. If you don't like the order, there's an option up here for settings that'll give you to, operators, show keys, and stuff like that. There's some minor settings that are in that one, but we'll leave that one alone. And you could pick the ones that you wanted. I wanted to filter only Florida, maybe Colorado, California. It's telling you you've got 3 of them. And now my filters, and there it is. Now, here's an interesting question that come up. Came up with some users, training class for some of the 4-3 people I've been doing. How do I and it in? There's no way to do an and in here. How do I do that? So you're looking at this going, well, I want state, but I want another one for here. So what if I wanted to add a year filter in there? Okay. So now it comes back for select year. And maybe for years, I want 21, 22. Okay. We've requested an all option instead of us have to check mark them all. If I had 30 years. So those are little things that have already requested. Those of you that know how I like to ping my friends in Paris. Okay. And now it's got the 2 and it says and, okay, for this one. But let's click the down arrow. Oh, we want to leave it the way it is actually. So let's go over to here and let's do the more option. Let's expand the manage filter window. So by selecting that, I want to go to manage filter, because if you notice, it did these 2 and it added them together by default. What if I want an or? You already saw how to do that in 4.2. Very simple. It's just a little trick here to get to it. It brings up the window, and it kind of looks like the filter window in 4.2. What block are you applying it to? Your acceptable values down here, and you wanted to make it an or, and it didn't look like you could do that. Well, you got to do it inside of here. So you got to go to manage. That becomes an or. Now I got states or years. Back to state. Double click it back in. And I got states and years for that one. Okay. And apply it to the block that you want to apply to. If you clicked on the white tab area instead, it would have applied it to everything you drop on that report tab. And that's not changed any from earlier version as well. Okay. And look how easy it was to do the local filtering, ands and ors and so on. Let's get rid of the filtering. Let's get back to seeing all the data that we have. That's critical here for that one. Okay.
All right, Michael, we've got a few questions that have come in.
Go ahead. Right now is a good point.
Right, perfect. Where is the option to select table structure?
Up here on the right side where there's a design button. There's also structure view there. And there's also read mode as it's called. But there it is right there, structure. That gives you a structure view. Then you come back in and you go to design view.
Okay.
I always get that question, and no matter what presentation in 4.3, because we're used to using structure mode to look under the covers. That's a good one. Yes.
How do you do a report level filter?
Report level, the local filters are going to apply at the highest level would be at the local tab level. If you do an input control, on the other hand, input control gives you the ability to apply it just to the one you're on or a specific block, or you could expand it out to apply it to all the document. So as far as local filters, we're on one tab at a time. So your local filtering will apply to anything you drop on that tab. And then you can take it up a level, like I said, with an input control, for example, and do it that way. Global filters are done through the query panel level up front to bring the data in. And then this is how you would divide it up right here. And there's your little filter that we had gone through as well.
All right. Would you show a nested filter?
Let's see what let me create 3 filters first for that one. So let's do that. Let's create a state. And we'll just pick maybe, well, let's see, 1, 2, and 3. We'll do an okay on that one. And then we'll bring a year filter in when it comes up. That's just my VMware environment, a little slow. We'll put year into the next one in here. And for year, we'll pick 22. We'll just pick one. It doesn't matter. And then we'll bring in quarter. And this, when you do this, now you have to be very conscious because of the and or types thing that you're aware of that you run into. Now we're doing this within the report itself. So even in 4.2, what you do at the prompt level is different than what you do at the report level, but be similar thing you see right here. So let's drag quarter in here just so we can have 3 filters. Didn't matter what they were. And we'll pick quarter 3 just to be different. So by default, you're going to see them the way you see them right here. Just a little slow coming back for those. So we're going to go to manage filters. That's the tricky part, a little bit different than what we had before. And here they are. So what we should be able to do is drag state over the top of year. That nested them together. The dragging worked in here. You don't have to worry about what we did for that's your nested filter, but I did it by dragging it. If I want the and it out in front, the and can be an or, the or can be an and basically there you go. So there's your nested filter feature. That again was something that had changed in when we moved out of the Java world. So hopefully I answered your question for that one as well. And I can get rid of these.
Okay, and we got input controls are available or not.
Absolutely, they're available. Now, in some cases, the way that they work in conjunction with a block and whatever, you may have to be in view mode or non-edit mode. It just depends on which ones, but generally the input controls are just like before. They're laid out a little different, but they can be applied very easily as well for that one. All right, what are we missing yet? There's one I haven't done, one of my favorites. I just did a presentation the other day, my top 10 favorite features of Webi. Could be 4.2, 4.3, didn't really matter. And this is always rated my #1 feature for among all the reporting functions and features that we have here. And it's the infamous group button. How do I group things? I love it. Take your dimensions, regroup them on the fly. You can take the groups and group them into something else. It's easy to manage. Do you want to spend all day building if then else expressions? If my state is in the list, California, Colorado, then West Coast else. No. And I don't want to have to do it the long way. So what I'll do is, what about this? What if I wanted to take my states and group them? We'll show you just a partial on it. So it says click for more options. It says, do you want to edit these as geography? If you're doing a geocharting, something geographic, it recognizes that it could associate by geography. That's where it gets the latitude, longitude values it needs. We want to go to manage groups, all right, which we don't have. We're going to do it. Or there's your custom order also. Now we did a custom order earlier when I showed you on the sort tab, but it's also available here. Let's go to manage groups. One of my favorites. I love this feature. And notice it says for managing the group, what do you want to call the new one? We'll just do the first 1 or 2 on it just so you get a flavor for it. Okay, so let's come across right here. Oh, it hasn't caught up with me yet. I know on group values. Let me backspace it up. Come on, let me back. There we go. I'm going to call it region. And people not utilizing this, well, you're missing out on a big thing. In 4.2, late in the releases, they added a lot of description boxes for local variables and other places as well. And you'll see these come up. Those are good places to put in text and comments and things like that as well that you might want to see. So what I want to do is I want to take California and Colorado, and I want to group them. Now, many of you might be power users. You're looking up here like I do. I still catch myself looking up here. All right, where's my group? Oh, it's down here. So they moved it from here to here. Not a big deal, but I'm telling you, with me jumping back and forth between the 2 versions, sometimes like, wait a minute, oh, it's down here because I'm in 4.3 because it's very similar. Hit the old group button. And so I'm going to call this one West or West Coast. I'll just do West. Oh, it remembers when I did it another time. Those have now been grouped in, and then I can do the same thing for DC, Massachusetts, or whatever, but then they all get grouped together. And when I close it all up, well, let's throw it in there real quick. We'll take DC, Massachusetts, and New York. We'll use our group feature here. And what we'll do is we'll call it North or Northeast. Northeast. We'll click that one in there real nice and neat like. And we'll take Florida and Texas. We're going to put those to a group called Southeast. It's my least favorite college conference because they seem to win a lot of the national titles. Southeast. And I have a single value. It's pretty cool. Man, in the old desktop product, it was a nightmare to do one value. Not literally, it took a little extra work. I just want Illinois to be grouped in a different way. And I'll just call it Midwest. And we'll let that one rip in there. And there we go. I managed to group all of them that are in there. And look how nice that one is. Now, the difference is it did not automatically change the state. I always get puzzled looks for new users in a regular 4.3 class now. We didn't do the group on top of that. We had to do it over on the right side on it here. And this is how it does it. It creates it as a new variable. So what I wanted to do is replace the state now with the region, which is what it would normally have done automatically in 4.2, but we have to do it over here on the side so it handles it a little differently. So it's no big deal. So what I want to do is I want to go to structure mode here through the feeder panel option. And then I can do this. I can take region. I can drag it right over the top of state. Look at this. Isn't this cool? Didn't show you that earlier. I can stick it in between, over the top, or below. Look at that. So we're going to put it right over the top because I want to replace state with region. And lo and behold, there you go. You want to edit these, you can come back in here and you can say rename, duplicate, delete, or manage your groups. And if you wanted to, you could move them around, change them, whatever else. This is an amazingly powerful feature. It even has an option for ungrouped values later on. If you come back in and say, what if a new one comes in? Don't make it visible. I don't want to see it as Illinois or whatever. I want to see it automatically grouped into a category. This is, you want to call it what others. Yep, that's what I want to do. And lo and behold, there you go. So now you have the ability to create your group one automatically. Huge time saver, different place, a little bit harder to find. I don't like it over here because it was much better on top and made it stand out a little bit more for you as well. All right, so that really, really did a nice job. If I wanted to create this myself, just a quick little note here, let me actually go in and get rid of this. Let's delete it completely. And notice it disappeared over here. So I'm just going to grab my state. Now I can go all the way across if I want to do it the hard way, or I can bring it right in here and I can stick it right in between there. This whole new interaction, when our training classes, we get you through the hands-on to get into the practice of using this back and forth and not in and out of the report anymore. Why not take advantage of it? My main side panel, my main build panel. And if I'm on the build side up here, the data element data side rather than the element format, there's all of my, or most of my functions that we're used to seeing from the analysis toolbar. So I know it's a lot of information to throw at you. Let's take any more questions. You've asked some good ones. I'll take any and or all.
All right, so we have, how do we create merged dimensions?
That's not the topic of today's presentation. Very easily done. Merge dimensions are going to be done over on the right side. This is where the window will come up with your multiple queries. You have to arrange it up here by query sequence. And just like before, you take the quarter from the first, quarter from the second, quarter from the third, and so on. That's my next presentation is going to be Merging Mania, and that's where I will talk about it. I don't want to cross over on it because I want you to be on one path at a time, concentrating today on the variables. But I got a lot of insight too with merging at 4.3. Little things to watch out for and whatever, but that we'll cover that, and that'll be a next webinar in a couple of weeks. We'll offer that one.
All right. If you use the grouping and there are additional values that come in, how do they get added automatically to a group?
Well, if you remember that one on the right side, I wish I took it out already. I can't undo that. On the right, I went down to the bottom where it said ungroup values, and I selected the down arrow, and it came up and said, well, all right, what do you want to put them in a folder called others? That's where I just showed that to you in the example for state when we did that one. Sorry, I took it out so quick. I can't put it back with the undo there. But it has on the right side ungroup values with the drop down, and you can pick other for it or whatever you want, and automatically group anything new into those. And that's how you do it. So you do it in 4.2, it works basically the same way, almost the same place. Other questions?
That's it so far.
Well, we covered a lot in that session. I'm hoping I made it valuable for you, a lot of my insight. I'm already working in 4.3 SP2 test mode with the developers, with my friend Samuel Polachek and and so on for it, but not much change there. Some little things, but you're seeing the big things here. Some things that you don't see out that I cover in other sessions as well is where are my calculations? I technically probably could have done that. We're used to seeing calculations over on the right side of the analysis. Here's what you do if you wanted to do a calculation. I wanted to do sales revenue, maybe I want a percent. We'll just do a second on this one. Right click. Now, when you right click, you've got to get comfortable with this bar. And because we highlighted that single value, this is the new location for all of your built-in functions. Your count, sum, min, max, percent. See how they are? We had them up in the right hand of the analysis toolbar. You click the drop down and you selected it. You do it by using footer calculation. All right, footer calculation. And if I wanted to do a percentage, watch what it does. Converts to percentage, and lo and behold, there it is. So now a new way of doing it. Yeah, I go back to footer calculations. It takes some getting used to. And that one's turned on. So I'm going to deselect it by turning it off. And away we go. So we don't have calculations up here anymore where we're used to seeing them. But you get used to those and working with them in that particular way. Oh, real quick little bonus on the right side. Here's the editor. Here's what the new formula editor looks like, our variable editor in 4.3. I can give you lots of neat little tips and tricks on that one. We could do a whole session on calculations. But here's the new layout. On the left side, we have a nice window that used to be on top. These three used to be sitting below this window here, left, middle, and right, but now they're located here. They took all of your arithmetic calculation. The plus minus symbols are not there, but I guess they assume we know what they are by now, so it shouldn't be an issue. But just a little extra. I just want to show you the variable editor. There it is. There it is. They've done a little cleanup on it too. This is going to be a 4.2 or 4.3 SP3 feature. They said they've tightened it up now so that if you have an error on your expression over here, it will do a better job of telling you what the error is, because it'll say add or near column, whatever. And you look across the column of that one, you go, well, where is it? I don't see it out there. I don't understand it. So once you get these boxes here stretched out, it makes it much easier. And you have the same help functionality you did before as well to make it work for you as part of that. I have a presentation I'll be doing early next month, another webinar. It's my top 10 features, and I throw all kinds of interesting little wrinkles and things in there. And there's some really slick calculation things I'm going to show you. The proper how to use properly the where statement to take something like sales revenue and break it into this year's sales revenue, last year, year before, 2 years ago, and so on, using nothing but different operators and functions from in here. But that warrants a whole separate, in 1 hour, 45 minutes, I can't quite do that. So I just thought I'd sneak that little one for the variables as well.
All right, we did have a few more come in, Michael. Where do change document margins? Where do I change document margins?
Anything relative formats going to be up here under display. In part, let's see, let me click onto here. In your unfold presentation mode, nope, that's not going to be there. Here's display. Well, it's going to give you display mode for that one. Yeah, the settings itself, we're going to do are done over on the right side here, but I got to remember where they are. Let me look that one up, but you can change them in the formatting side. It does give you the ability, if you're formatting here, you have your padding, your background, and so on. It's doing it for the sales revenue column. So the format side rather than the data side, and you're not on the feeder panel, but you're on formatting, that's where you got all your stuff around the sides of it. Up here would be more at the whole block level, but that's for individually where you could be able to do all those kinds of changes as well. You got to be careful. When you get into the formatting side up here, you have 3 options. There's actually 4, but we only have 3 because of the type of object it is, a measure. So the first one here gives you appearance settings. The second one gives you text settings. So if you wanted the text side, and the third one gives you layout. All right. So, and my little reference card really does a nice job just pointing to those and reminding you what those are as part of that as well.
All right, so I'm going to combine this next 2 because they came in 2 different. And I think, can you tell which group to put them in? So you have 2 groups and you want all new values to go into one of those groups.
No, you cannot. I've gotten that question in 4.2 as well. If you want to put them into a special group, the only one it gives you is one option for that in terms of picking them up automatically. If that's what I'm talking about. Instead of, but you can have, I broke them out individually. I mean, we took these 2 that were one of the groups here, the other ones is another group and so on. But if you want to have certain ones, new ones go into one or the other, you don't have the ability to do that.
Okay, and please show how to create and manage a section.
I'm not, it's going to take me too long going in there to do that one. I'll show you what you do for sections, but that would be, again, let me just do this, just real quick highlight. For sections, you have a couple different ways. The old way where you can right click on the column and set a section be done. I don't like this part, the way that it handles sections right now, the layout, because you have to do a lot of work. But if I just drag it out and drop it over here, okay, section, it's going to create the section report for me automatically, in this case, broken out by state. And then I can drag my block over to there, or I can drag this section. Maybe I do a compromise. I drag this one over here, and I drag this one over here. A lot of you know I'm very big on section reports, so I don't like the way it defaults it, but that's basically gives you the fundamentals, how easy it is to set a section. And as I said, I could have done a right click on that state column. I'll show you on the year column here. Come on back, guys. Yeah, we can do for a future webinar topic. That would be great. Great one to do as well. And the right click option is available like it is in there, and you can do set a section. Where's my set a section? Oh, it's not letting me do it because I need another dimension, because then there'd be nothing in the body. So, but you just insert it. You could do a set a section. It'll pull it right out there. Got some really good examples. If you've been through my 4.2 training, you have copies of some of those best practice guides. Most all of those have been converted, and I added in some really cool new features as well. I have a random number generator example. I have one where we did a ranking and we wanted every even row to be conditional formatting for the background. So a lot of cool stuff. I didn't even get into conditional formatting. That would be fun too. They did some cleanup and some things, but again, because there's so much content that we all want to get into, take the 1-day class or take a consolidated 2-day. What a lot of my customers do, instead of just one, they want more hands-on. So we take 3 days worth of content, pull it down into 2, and you get all the navigating and all that. Those are different options you have depending upon what you feel you need to know and learn about. But a lot of things have changed, as you already saw. All the merging's done on the right. We would even show you that. How about adding the queries up here on the left? Some things are similar, but many are different. So hopefully in the 50 minutes here, I'm sure I made it worth your time and effort to come out. For those of you that are already signed up for our next couple classes coming up, I look forward to seeing you there. And if you're not, the 1-day class is an awesome way, because you're going to get a lot of materials and you're going to get a lot of best practice guides to help out as well. So how do we look there? Look okay?
I've got another question that came in. There used to be a title block on top. When I change the title, I get an error in the function. How can I fix this?
If the title area would go up in here, and I turn that off, that's where it would go. I'd have to see what they're doing in there, because if you just put a title in there, you should be fine. I'd have to see if the function's being set up. There's a function for that, and that it's set up correctly.
Okay,
So
we've got are alerters available in SP2 and SP3?
Well, that's conditional formatting. We don't refer to it as alerters anymore. It's long since become conditional formatting. I didn't even show you that, although it's easily done. It's just for time's sake. I'm trying to concentrate mainly on these set of features that we're bringing together. But yeah, conditional formatting, I can show you how it's changed. They've improved it and done some nice things with it. One of the biggest things you'll see with it is if you have an empty cell, you can highlight the empty cell now and do conditional formatting. You don't have to deselect it, apply your conditional formatting and rules, and then turn it on for that cell. You don't have to do that anymore. And they made it easier to expand it and do some other nice things. But again, in the 45-minute allotment, I can't do conditional formatting, and then I can't do multiple data providers and merging. It's so much content. But come back in 2 weeks and you'll get the one on merging with some really good stuff there as well. You want me to pop the last slide up here?
Absolutely.
Let me skip to the next one. These don't list the webinar dates. Those are coming up. You'll get an email on the next 2 ones shortly. These are the training dates that you can take. And yes, 4.2. The biggest percentage of you are probably still going to be 4.2 users, but moving. Don't do any training until you're ready to move or you're close, because you're going to forget it. So try to tie it a little closer in with when your migration's going on as well.
I did have the questions about the training. So this will give you guys some a little bit about what we do have up and coming. Michael is the instructor on all these training events. They can be found on our website as protecttraining.com. You can go through and find the web intelligence courses. This is just to give you some dates as to the courses we have. The 4.2 and the 4.3. Michael's also doing a 1-day course on navigating web intelligence 4.3 and 4.2. So what's the difference between the two? That's going to be a great 1-day course. You can contact myself and I will get you in touch with your sales account manager, and they can get you signed up into the course. Or if you just go out to our website, you could see the pricing, and you can also register and sign up for the course through our website also. Again, Michael is doing two additional webinars for us, and those will be November 17th, I believe, and December 1st. Those also can be found on our website. If you go out to our website and go to resources and up and coming webinars, you can go ahead and look at the topics, and you can sign up through the website also for those. Everybody asked about a handout. As soon as Michael provides the handout to myself, and I get this video prepped and ready to go, I will get everybody the link to the video, and I will get everybody the handouts and send it out to everybody. I want to thank everyone for taking the time and coming out today during your lunch to view our presentation. Michael, I want to thank you for hosting and giving us some great insight into Webi.
It's always good to get in front of everybody, share my knowledge with you, as you know. Hopefully I'll see you soon, hopefully in some training.